For BWYellowJackets.com, I'm Brendan Gulick, joined by Brian Rector, our men's tennis coach here at BW, as we get ready to preview the season, which starts this weekend. I have to imagine that's probably a little weird to hear, but here we are already, and it's time to get going. It's going to be a lot of fun. I want to start maybe by looking at where the season ended last year. Semifinals, it was a weird day. You had bad weather, you had a court change, and then the end of the match didn't end up lasting all that long. But a John Carroll team that was the #1 seed and was very good, you guys really gave them a run for their money. How does the end of last season, how do you hope that motivated this team in the fall in your couple matches and then into the wintertime here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. That for a team this year where we have the majority of our players coming back, it was very important. I mean, we transitioned last year. You know, John Carroll, we had a tough match with them in the regular season. Specifically, our second doubles team, they lost 8-0. I mean, they got shut out, but every game was right there. We just couldn't win the big points. Got to the OAC final, and team totally turned it around and won that match convincingly. So I think that match specifically, from a team perspective, gave the rest of the team kind of hope and something that, hey, doesn't matter what happens early on, as long as we work hard and when we learn from the mistakes, we can turn that around. So they're motivated. I think they're ready this year to kind of see where we're at. We added a couple freshmen as well that will be in the mix. So
can't wait to see the team get out there for sure. Let's jump right into maybe your top couple of players, Matt Harris and obviously Dominic Polifrone. Guys that have accomplished a lot for you and your program. Where do you think they need to take the biggest step moving forward if they want to continue to elevate their game?
Sure. The biggest thing, I think, will be the bar that they set for themselves last year, not to get complacent. Dominic obviously worked his butt off last year, was Player of the Year in the conference. So the level underneath him now, people are looking after him to kind of take his spot. So I don't think from what I've seen so far in the fall, and then running practices and things leading up to this weekend, I don't think that's the case at all. These guys are, even though they're seniors, they're still hungry. I think they were a little bit surprised on how well they did with the amount of work they put in and saw the results. So I think they're continuing in that and showing the freshmen that early on that it can be done. You need to work hard and good things will happen.
How about a guy like Jake Elbin, who's been a big part of this program now for a couple of years, extremely athletic, super strong, but plays another sport here at BW. He's a big part of the men's basketball program. Mm-hmm. What is it like working with a student athlete who plays multiple varsity sports, and the way the seasons overlap? Perhaps it's fair to say that a lot of his energy is spent on basketball and many of your other guys are focusing on training for tennis season.
Right. Well, with Jake, the main word for our program here for tennis is flexibility, and that falls right into the flexibility piece. So from a conditioning perspective, he doesn't have to worry about that. But we did add something for Jake this year. We've got 3 captains, Dominic, as you mentioned, Matt, and we voted Jake captain, who's actually controlling the freshmen. We've got 4 freshmen in this year, so he loves a leadership role. I think he likes to constantly be busy. He's not one to sit in a chair like we're doing here. He's on the run. But you never see him stressed. He's one guy that, at least on the outside, he's got that positive nature. That's why we thought the captains and I as a team thought he'd be a great transition role, because he does do that. He plays basketball, gets out of practice there and then jumps in the van with us and goes and practices for an hour and a half. So I think not many people can do it. Jake's got the personality and the mindset to do that.
He's a fun kid to be around, a fun kid to support, and man, it's cool to watch him compete. Let's jump into some of the schedule highlights. Obviously, the coolest highlight for anybody that might look at the schedule at a quick glance outside the conference will be your spring break trip down to Hilton Head. And I know we've talked at times in the past about how that's a really good opportunity for your guys to literally live together for a week and be around each other and cook food and compete and do that whole thing as a team. But on top of that, last year you had a pretty successful trip. What's the secret to going down and not just competing hard, but actually coming back with more wins than losses?
Yeah, I think the secret is getting away from campus, the exams. I mean, it's a real clean cut from the guys working to get to that point. We've developed a schedule down there that we're playing teams that are a little bit above us, right at our level. Maybe sometimes we get teams that are a little bit below our level, but we've got a variety of players and levels this year that I think that'll mix in very, very nicely. Plus the scenery down there is great, the weather's great. I mean, that always kind of lifts the spirits. As we're dodging snow here the last few weeks, it kind of lifts the spirit a little bit as well.
This is not a advertisement for Hilton Head, but for anybody that hasn't been, I mean, good grief, what are you waiting for? You like tennis and you like golf, it's the place to be, no doubt. Why don't we dive into a little bit of the roster? We've talked about your top players, talked about Jake, but you mentioned you've got a couple freshmen that are coming in. What do you like about this freshman class, and who might fans be excited to watch this year?
I like the energy. Eddie Sharpman, kid out of Westlake, who I recruited, looked at from a doubles perspective last year. He's a kid, even though he's a freshman, he has that kind of it factor on the court when he's playing that just motivates the rest of the team. What I saw from him last year, even a little bit, in the couple of matches that he's played, is that he's a team guy. He's not playing, he's out there cheering the rest of the guys. So I think he's kind of keeping the team bonded even as a freshman. I kind of like that. We have another kid, Miles Collins, hardest working kid you'll ever see on the court. The guys were telling me even when he's going to class, he's got his racket with him. I mean, he is 100% tennis. He loves the game, loves the sport, and I've seen his level from the time I was watching him as a senior until now as an early freshman with a couple matches, tournaments under his belt. I mean, his level's already improved significantly.
Love hearing stories like that. You really can't coach heart. How about the recruiting process? I mean, I hear a lot of coaches talk about, we're looking for kids that have standout leadership ability and for kids that stand out in their high school programs. But one thing I've noticed coaches talk a lot about lately, no matter what the sport is how much they are focused on recruiting families and not just those in particular players. How do you approach that situation when you're looking at any player, whether they're coming out of high school or a transfer kid, and what kind of role does recruiting the family take in your process?
Mm-hmm. It's I think the most important. For example, we have our match this Friday with W&J. I've invited several recruits and their families to come up to watch the match, see how we operate as a team, see how I coach on the court, my demeanor out there, how I interact with current players, so they can kind of see, how am I going to interact with their son, when he's here. It's been a big, like I said, it's almost our number one. We're not recruiting just a player. We're recruiting the family to become part of the Baldwin Wallace family. We've seen that in years. When we go to Hilton Head, I think a couple of years ago when we had the Harris brothers both on this team at the same time.
Sure.
Every family came that year. I think we had 10 players, so we had 9 families because we had the brothers. I mean, if you look at the team picture, we almost didn't get it in the wide angle lens because they traveled with us. So it's a big part of our recruiting process.
Well, it's been successful for sure, and we can't wait to see how things go this year. We'll follow you as best we can along the way. Good luck this season.
Thanks, Brendan.
All right, the season kicks off this weekend, as you mentioned, against Washington and Jefferson, and we'll run all the way through the OAC championships, which are typically right in that first weekend in May. Good luck to the Yellow Jackets here this spring. For Brian Rector, I'm Brendan Gulick. See you next time at BWYellowJackets.com.